Is Epicatechin worth your money? Does it compare to YK11 as a Follistatin-Secretagogue, giving you steroid-like gains? Even if you're a dirty half-natty that's afraid to shut down his HPTA, I gained something alright, but these were not the gains I was looking for. Keep watching to find out what happened. Vigorous Steve here. Let's talk about Epicatechin, a flavanol of the catechin class, which is commonly found in green tea, dark chocolate, raspberry roots, but barely in raspberry fruit. Those only have negligible Epicatechin content. I've been using from 180 milligrams up to 900 milligrams, yes, 900 milligrams Epicatechin daily for the last 4 weeks, running various incremental experiments. And I reviewed all of the scientific evidence in the meantime, or at least the scientific evidence that's relevant for this deep dive. So here's your evidence-based Epicatechin deep dive that will contain a good amount of anecdotal reports, so we can put the evidence and the anecdotal reports together and see if Epicatechin is worth your hard-earned money. First things first, there's two versions of Epicatechin. There's plus Epicatechin and minus Epicatechin. They are enantiomers, meaning that they're mirror images of each other, but vary in biological activity. Minus Epicatechin is more prevalent in food sources and seems to offer more beneficial effects compared to plus catechin. So let's start comparing them head-on-head directly here. Regarding the enantiomer breakdown, minus Epicatechin is a 2R3R stereoisomer and plus Epicatechin is a 2S3S stereoisomer. The occurrence of minus Epicatechin, it can be found in raspberry roots, green tea, also known as Camellia sinensis, where most of the Epicatechin extracts are coming from. It's also found in cocoa beans, dark chocolate products, grapes and grape seeds, and acai seeds. And plus Epicatechin is only found in Cherokee rose and Pavette owariensis, but it's mostly formed from plus catechins found in nuts and seeds. So if you like nuts, then you might get free plus Epicatechin by the conversion of plus catechin to plus Epicatechin. Regarding the biological activity, minus Epicatechin has a lot more benefits. It increases follistatin levels and lowers myostatin levels, has potent antioxidant activity, has blood pressure lowering effects, potential anti-inflammatory and anti-cancer properties, and improves mitochondrial efficiency and biogenesis. And plus Epicatechin only has moderate antioxidant activity and improves mitochondrial efficiency and biogenesis as well, but in a much lower extent compared to minus Epicatechin. Minus Epicatechin has a greater bioavailability compared to plus Epicatechin. Minus Epicatechin has a half-life between 1.2 to 3.1 hours with a mean half-life of approximately 2.5 hours, so frequent dosing is recommended. And plus Epicatechin has a half-life of 1.2 to 4.9 hours, but I wouldn't suggest you eat these nuts that frequently. So let's focus on minus Epicatechin, not plus Epicatechin, because it's more readily available as a dietary supplement or found in food sources. The benefits are far greater, and most of the scientific evidence is stemming from minus Epicatechin, but going forward, we'll just say that minus Epicatechin is the Epicatechin that we're after, and not differentiate between minus and plus, because otherwise, well, it starts to get cumbersome, and a lot of pluses and minus turns this video into calculus, and that's not what we're after, obviously. Minus Epicatechin, last time I promised, is found in these following food sources. I've included the total amount of milligrams for each of these food sources you would need to consume to get approximately 200 milligrams minus Epicatechin in. Personally, I used a dietary supplement from ND. I don't want to promote this brand because, well, they have a little bit shady marketing strategy that I'm not really for, but this seems to be the most potent Epicatechin on the market. It was contained 180 milligrams per capsule or per tablet, with also bioperine to allegedly increase the absorption, even though the results of my Epicatechin experiment might not be entirely what you're after here, but we'll get into that when we discuss the blood work results. So here you see that if you want to get approximately 200 milligrams Epicatechin in, you would need to consume 2,200 milligrams raspberry roots containing 9.2% minus Epicatechin, or 3,700 to 10,000 milligrams green tea, or 2 to 5 cups of green tea daily. So that's actually quite promising. That's very doable. Green tea contains between 2 to 5.5% Epicatechin. Cocoa beans and dark chocolate contain between 0.2 to 2.5% Epicatechin, so you would need to consume 8 to 100 grams dark chocolate or cacao beans, powdered obviously, per day, which is also doable, I would say. Grapes or grapeseed contains less than 1.34% Epicatechin, so you would need to consume over 15 grams. Grapes and grape seeds. I believe that the grape seeds actually contain more of the epicatogen compared to the flesh of the grape. So if you go with seedless grapes, you probably need to consume more than 15 grams over the day to get 200 milligrams epicatogen in. Acai seeds are less than 0.5% epicatogen, so you would need to consume 38 grams acai seeds over the day, also doable. Apples have negligible content, so you would need to consume over 700 grams. That's a bit steep. Cherries also have negligible epicatogen content. You would need to consume over 2.1 kilograms of cherries daily. Imagine how red your tongue would be in that context. Red raspberries, the fruit, not the roots, also have negligible epicatogen content. You would need to consume over 2.5 kilos, way too much. Various kinds of red wine also contain negligible amounts of epicatogen, even though it's readily found or more commonly found in grapes, which are used to produce red wine. You would need to consume over 100,000 liters of Pinot Noir or Cabernet Sauvignon to get 200 milligrams approximately of epicatogen in. Very unreasonable because that's 667 glasses. Encicropia hololuca and maritime pine are said to contain epicatogen, but I couldn't find the exact percentages or milligram content per 100 grams, so those have unknown epicatogen content. So while it might be possible to get adequate amounts of minus epicatogen in over the day from dietary sources, I mean, I'm not against taking, let's say, around 8 grams of cacao powder or up to 100 grams of dark chocolate, even though that contains a boatload of extra calories and might cause you a boatload of pimples as well, or a couple cups of green tea over the day. I'm not against that, but it's probably better, and what I did for this experiment, to take a dietary supplement that contains around 100 to 200 milligrams epicatogen per capsule, and then space that out over the day for the follistatin secretion and the mitochondrial biogenesis and the antioxidant properties to manifest, again, without this burden of additional calories if you go with cacao or dark chocolate. But before we get ahead of ourselves and start discussing ideal dosing protocols, let's look into the evidence-based unique characteristics of epicatogen and see what kind of benefits we can get by supplementing that in alongside of the other supplements that we're taking on a daily basis and perhaps polypharmacy on top of that. Now, a simple search for epicatogen on PubMed gives you 20,500 studies approximately. So if I left something out, my sincere apologies. If you feel that I left out a particular study that is very important to you, put your citations down below with a little bit of a description and interpretation of this study. If there's a lot more to discuss, we'll either discuss that during the Epicatogen deep dive, which will drop a couple days from now. Epicatogen improves mitochondrial function and promotes mitochondrial biogenesis. This has been shown and proven in human studies, animal models, and in vitro studies. When it comes to humans, though, they usually administer dark chocolate, resulting in about 50 milligrams to 100 milligrams epicatogen taken orally, obviously, twice daily, between 100 milligrams to 200 milligrams epicatogen total over the day for 4 weeks to 3 months. That's aggregating all of the scientific evidence regarding humans together. But many of the studies performed on mitochondrial function and biogenesis are actually in vitro studies using cell cultures or animal models using mice or rats. This study by Dowsin et al. Performed on January 1st, 2021, titled Effects of Mining Epicatogen on Mitochondria, summarizes most of the scientific evidence. It's linked down below with all the other scientific evidence which we're discussing in this evidence-based unique characteristics segment of epicatogen. And here I highlighted 2 studies that used human subjects out of all of the studies that this study highlights. Epicatogen increases plasma antioxidant capacity and reduces endothelin-1, which is a marker of oxidative stress shown in humans, with 100 milligrams orally twice daily, so that's 200 milligrams epicatogen total over the day for 4 weeks. And the same study shows that epicatogen inhibits aerobic adaptation to cycling exercise at, the exact same dose, obviously. Epicatogen increases nitric oxide production and contributes to blood pressure management, also in human subjects, at the exact same dosing protocol. Epicatogen increases peroxisome proliferator activated receptor 1 coactivator 1A, sirtuin 1, and mitochondrial transcription factor A in humans suffering from type 2 diabetes and heart failure. So this might not translate to healthy individuals, even though epicatogen increases mitochondrial function and biogenesis partially through PGC1A activity. This is coming from a study using dark chocolate containing 100 milligrams epicatechin administered orally once daily for 3 months in total. And this might mean that epicatechin has potential synergistic effect with telmisartan and cardarine, which go through similar pathways and also increase mitochondrial function and biogenesis to a certain extent. Epicatechin increases follistatin by 137.5% and increases myostatin by 136.4% and improves overall muscle function and regeneration in humans suffering from Becker muscular dystrophy at 50 milligrams epicatechin orally twice daily, 100 milligrams total for 8 weeks. Epicatechin increases follistatin by 290.3 to 303.4% and reduces myostatin by 6.3 to 30.2%. And improves left ventricular ejection fraction by 108.9%, albeit that this was shown in humans suffering from Friedreich's ataxia. Observed at a dose of 75 milligrams epicatechin orally once daily for 24 weeks, and doubling the dose to 150 milligrams epicatechin orally once daily for 12 weeks. So before you get too excited about these numbers, Friedreich's ataxia is a rare inherited neurodegenerative disease that affects the nervous system, primarily the cerebellum and spinal cords. It causes progressive loss of coordination, balance, and muscle control. So in cases where follistatin really goes up and myostatin really comes down, when epicatechin is supplemented in, mostly observed in unhealthy people suffering from various conditions. Epicatechin might increase fat metabolism, improve insulin sensitivity, and lowers postprandial serum glucose levels in humans suffering from obesity. Postprandial means after the meal. This was observed at 100 milligrams epicatechin orally twice daily, so that's 200 milligrams total, again for 4 weeks consecutively. It increases follistatin by 126.7% to 161.2% and reduces myostatin by 15.4% when combined with resistance training in cases of sarcopenia, and also prevents muscle loss, but this was shown in elderly patients. Now, keep in mind that vigorous exercise also increases follistatin levels and reduces myostatin levels, as I mentioned in the myostatin deep dive I dropped last year, give or take. So give that one a watch if you haven't already. And this effect was observed at 70 milligrams epicatechin orally once daily for 8 weeks consecutively. Epicatechin increases follistatin by 2% and decreases myostatin by 18.7% and improves overall muscle function and strength without exercise, coming from a study using elderly human patients at 600 milligrams tannase treated green tea extract orally once daily, containing approximately 100 milligrams minus epicatechin. In healthy people though, epicatechin increases follistatin by 159.1% at a dose between 50 milligrams to 200 milligrams orally once daily for 5 days. And it also increases follistatin by 264.5% and reduces serum platelet count at 50 milligrams epicatechin orally twice daily, so that's 100 milligrams total, for 5 days. Epicatechin increases hand grip strength by 7% and improves myostatin to follistatin ratio by approximately 49.2%. Also coming from a human study at 25 milligrams epicatechin orally once daily for 7 days. Epicatechin increases follistatin by 56% and increases myostatin by 15 to 21%, coming from an animal model using mice at 1 milligram per 1 kilogram of body weight orally once daily for 2 weeks. So that translates to 0.08 milligrams per 1 kilogram of body weight orally once daily for humans. That's approximately 8 milligrams epicatechin for 100 kilogram bodybuilder. So that's very doable. And funnily enough, now that Cerebrolisin has been pulled off the market right after I finished the deep dive, I'm not sure if there's a correlation there, but unfortunately for me, doing all the research on Cerebrolisin, the next day or a couple of days later, it was pulled off the market and it's no longer available for USA-based consumers. Epicatechin increases brain-derived neurotrophic factor BDNF by about 40% in the hippocampus and about 10% in the cortex of the brain of mice at 4 milligrams epicatechin orally daily. Now, this loosely translates to about 148.15 milligrams epicatechin per 1 kilogram of body weight when we take the average body weight of the mice used in this study, being about 27 grams, which would mean 12 milligrams per 1 kilogram of body weight for humans, aka 1200 milligrams epicatechin daily for a 100 kilogram bodybuilder. Now, personally, I ran 900 milligrams epicatechin at most for the last days of this epicatechin experiment. I did not notice any of the benefits that I otherwise got from 5 milliliters to 10 milliliters Cerebrolisin before bed. I didn't notice that I got mitigation of post-exercise brain fog using epicatechin or enhanced sleep quality using epicatechin, so your mileage might vary. I would not take epicatechin to increase brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which has only been observed in an animal model. And this is quite interesting, even though it's based on a computer calculation. Epicatechin might inhibit angiogenesis by blocking vascular endothelial growth factor mediated activity, which is concerning, obviously, because you do want to use epicatechin in a context where angiogenesis can occur for recovery and blood flow and that kind of stuff. So if you're after BDNF and VEGF, then it's probably better to use cerebrolysin or another angiogenesis promoting compound like TB500, BPC157, etc., and leave the epicatechin, in the supplement cabinet. Let's start reviewing scientific evidence when it comes to exercise, because that's the primary reason why we're using epicatechin, not only to increase follistatin levels, but to see if it has any performance-enhancing benefits. Luckily for us, the benefits regarding an increase in performance and exercise capacity has been indexed in this study, performed by German et al., published on January 22nd, 2024, titled New Trends to Treat Muscular Atrophy, a Systemic Review of Epicatechin. Now, I've highlighted all of the studies which looked into epicatechin, but not the studies which used cacao powder or dark chocolate, as they also contain other polyphenols, which might offer a contributing beneficial effect. The scientific evidence shows that epicatechin anywhere between 25 milligrams to 400 milligrams daily, either in a single serving or administered twice daily at half the dose, obviously, for 1 to 24 weeks, suppressed mitochondrial adaptation to exercise, increased mitochondrial biogenesis, it lowers myostatin, it increases follistatin, and increases strength, all in human subjects. And with the animal models, whether that's mice or rats, they received 1 milligrams epicatechin per 1 kilogram of body weight once or twice daily for 14 days to 15 weeks. C-reactive protein levels decreased. Not sure about that. Antioxidant status increased. Mitochondrial function and biogenesis improved. Exercise performance improved. Skeletal muscle size increased. Vascular endothelial growth factor increased, even though a computer model showed that it potentially blocks vascular endothelial growth factor activity. So maybe it actually does. And thus vascular endothelial growth factor concentrations in the bloodstream go up because it can't bind to its specific receptor. And aging-related biomarkers and sarcopenia was reduced, suggesting anti-aging effects that epicatechin potentially has. It's a great study. Give it a read. It's linked down below, as always. Okay, enough with the scientific evidence and the boring study overlays. What about the good old hands-on anecdotal experience from our online steroid daddy, Vigorous Steve, who we literally forced to come down to testosterone only and not take anything else, not even an aromatase inhibitor, because we wanted to see if epicatechin has some sort of suppressive effect on serum estradiol levels, like we expect with YK11 suppressing estradiol levels by inhibiting the aromatase enzyme selectively. So I didn't use an aromatase inhibitor. You guys literally wanted to torture me. My serum estradiol levels are off the scale. That's why my face is so freakishly round and I'm holding so much water. Actually, it's quite doable. It's quite okay. But yeah, it was an interesting experiment running testosterone only and coming off everything else just to please you guys. And this is basically what I did for Operation Follistatin. This was the base protocol. I took Bayer testifier half an ampule Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Half an ampule contains approximately 1.25 milliliters. That's how much milliliters I get out of a Bayer testifier ampule. They're generally overfilled. So that's 156.3 milligrams sub-Q upon waking Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday for a total weekly intake of 625 milligrams testosterone enanthate. Nothing else. No anavar, no primobolan, no mastrone, no dianabol, no, nothing else, guys. Just 625 milligrams testosterone. That's it. And then alongside, well, if you want to count this, DHEA, right? 25 milligrams upon waking and 12.5 milligrams before bed. As you can see from my blood work, that serum DHEA sulfate levels are nice towards the top of the reference range. I took telmisartan to control my blood pressure, 40 milligrams upon waking. Ezetimibe to control my lipid levels, 10 milligrams upon waking. Fluvoxamine, 50 milligrams before bed to control my mood, because it's not the greatest sometimes, especially while dieting, especially while taking the growth hormone out and all the other stuff out, right? I have to take something. And I took 10 milligrams methylene blue upon waking 5 times weekly on workout days. Now, there might be a potential SSRI and MAO inhibiting serotonin syndrome drug interaction there, but at 50 milligrams fluvoxamine and 10 milligrams methylene blue a couple times per week, I did not experience any symptoms of serotonin syndrome, luckily. Now, and the nootropics are as needed, so that's either 10 milligrams oral dihexa, 10 milligrams oral Nupept, 50 milligrams bromothane, 500 micrograms intranasal Simex, etc., 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 right? I still need my nootropics to get some work done. I mean, if I can't take nootropics, then what's the point of making these deep dives? These deep dives would take twice as long because I need to force feed all of this scientific evidence in my head and draw appropriate conclusions to make entertaining content and informative content for you guys. So don't take my nootropics away. Don't you ever dare. Okay, the over-the-counter supplements were as follows. The details are on the screen. Let that scroll a little bit, right? Just as a reminder, I had leg surgery, so that's why my vitamin D3 and vitamin K complex intake is reasonably high. I had leg surgery, I had an orthopedic plate removed, and thus I have 7 screw holes left in my leg. So I need the excess bone mineralization to fill that hole up as fast as possible so I can actually train legs heavy again because, well, I've been doing 5 plates on the leg press. That's really not enjoyable, I'll tell you that. Let's see, what other adjustments did I make? I reduced my Tatka intake to see if that would have an overlapping effect on my liver enzymes, which, again, my liver enzymes went up a little bit. And I took a couple compounds out which might improve mitochondrial function, like quercetin, for example, but I felt that that did not do anything in the total picture. I mean, comparing quercetin to methylene blue, that's not a fair comparison. So all the details are on the screen. I'll let that scroll a little bit. And again, as a quick reminder, I'm taking nattokinase, serrapeptase, and lumerokinase to help break apart the scar tissue that I have on my lower chest because I did gynecomastia surgery at the same time with liposuction because I had stubborn fat that I never got away. So I did the surgery route, the easy way out, even though it's quite painful and expensive. So I'm taking these peptidases to help break apart scar tissue, which now there's a lot more detail on my lower chest, as you'll see from that before and after pictures. Now, to all of this, for a month, I added the following minus Epicatechin protocol coming from this over-the-counter supplement containing about 180 milligrams Epicatechin extracted from green tea with a certain amount of bioperine to enhance the absorption, allegedly. I took a 90% minus Epicatechin extract. Day 1 to 10 of this experiment, I took 180 milligrams orally upon waking daily. Day 11 to 20, I took 180 milligrams orally upon waking and before bed. So that's a total of 360 milligrams daily. And then the last 10 days of this experiment, day 21 to 30, I ramped up the dose to 180 milligrams, 1 capsule, every single meal for a total of 900 milligrams daily. Yeah, I'm going to say honestly that I did not notice much of a difference between 360 milligrams to 900 milligrams. I don't think that was warranted. I just wanted to see if it could offer a beneficial effect, but there was a clear difference switching from 180 milligrams to 360 milligrams. So that would be my sweet spot recommendation. This is my diet throughout the entire experimentation period. That did not change, even though some of the meals I changed for tuna, for example, or sea bass or another fish source, or sometimes I would just stick with steak or chicken. But most of the time I had a combination of 150 milligrams ground beef with 25 milligrams ground beef liver, 150 milligrams ground chicken breast, and then vegetables on top, 100 grams of kale, 100 grams of green beans, 50 grams of sauerkraut. But if I switched to a fish source, I would replace that with kimchi, a little bit of extra virgin olive oil to help with the cooking of the kale and the green beans, a tablespoon of chia seed, and then a healthy dose of Himalaya pink salt with iodized table salt. And I would eat that approximately 2 to 3 times, 4 times daily, unless I switched some meals around. Again, I have some digestive issues, which I'm still trying to figure out. All of the foods that I eat on a daily basis frequently, they digest very well for me. I can still pull a vacuum at the end of the day at about 2,600 calories. Sometimes I eat a little bit more, add in a little bit of mixed nuts for the epicatechin or plus catechin content, obviously. I need to megadose the epicatechin if possible. So I would add in a little bit of mixed nuts based on my activity. But overall, my fat loss journey was a success because I got significantly leaner. And let's see, meal 4 post-workout was 300 grams of salmon, 50 grams of kimchi, a tablespoon of chia seeds, and 200 grams of blueberries. Sometimes I would eat a little bit more fruit for, let's say, 2,600 calories to 3,000 calories over the day. I followed the following workout split: daily fasted cardio. I know everybody gets allergic from that, but that certainly works for me to get leaner. On Monday, I would train chest, triceps, shoulders. On Tuesday, I would train quads, hamstrings, adductors, glutes, and calves. Wednesday, I rest. Then Tuesday, I would do a push day again, and Friday, I would do a quad day again. And then Saturday, after taking months off from training back, because, well, you can see it from the front, that's how fat it is. I would train back again for the last couple of weeks just to get a little bit of back mass going and get those lats flaring nicely. Okay, so back, rear delts, and biceps on Saturday. And then Sunday, I would rest and have my refeed and cheat day. Here are the before and after pics. In both pictures, I'm 105 kilos, so that's a nice recomping effect. Both pictures, I'm taking 625 milligrams testosterone and nothing else, and the ancillaries that I mentioned. And in the after picture, I was running up to 900 milligrams epicatechin at least for 10 days at the end of this experiment. So I got leaner overall, which I'm happy with. Again, caloric restriction, cardio, that kind of stuff, right? That's to be expected. How much of this fat loss came from epicatechin, I'm not sure, but it has been shown scientifically to enhance fat loss to a certain extent and improve insulin sensitivity. I got a little bit bigger, I would say. My arms are a little bit bigger, legs are certainly bigger, but that's also because I was only training legs for 3 or 4 weeks after taking 2 months off after that leg surgery. So give me a little bit of a break when it comes to the legs, right? That's a project that is in the making. I'm sure my legs will improve when I switch to YK11 and then Follistatin-344 as part of this Operation Follistatin experiment. My vacuum is a little bit deeper, a lot more details. My lower chest is a lot more defined. So I'm pretty happy with these results. So the detail in my legs is also better, and the volumization of the calves and the quads and the adductors even is improved. Also, in the back, there's still a lot of work to be done, but I think you guys can clearly see that I have more details in my shoulders, arms, and back and hamstrings even. In the before picture, I wasn't really flexing properly. Again, when you take a couple of weeks off from the gym, you're also not flexing. So my posing practice is basically non-existent. I pose when I take before and after pictures, and that's about it. I'm not a full-time hardcore bodybuilder anymore. I take my pictures once a month, give or take. But I got noticeably leaner in the lower back and a little bit more detail in the arms, a little bit more volume in the arms, legs look a little bit bigger. So I would say that it's good progress for a month. Yeah, I'm quite happy with the results. Now, before we get into the actual before and after blood work results, it's very important to understand that there's no standardized testing or availability of serum follistatin levels or serum myostatin levels. Can't test it anywhere. I found some sort of source online that offers follistatin testing at home, but you still need to get that prescribed through a primary healthcare physician in the United States. And my insurance is not there, and I don't work with a doctor in the United States. So that's completely off the table. I contacted a WADA accredited lab here in Thailand, a university that can do all kinds of testing, but they told me that testing for follistatin and myostatin requires a reference standard, which costs several $1,000s, especially when you reuse this reference standard and compare my serum follistatin and myostatin levels to this reference standard multiple times before the epicatechin experiment and then after the epicatechin experiment, which is before the YK11 experiment, and then before the Follistatin-344 experiment, and then afterwards again, it would have cost me thousands of dollars. And by the time I realized this, it was already too late because it takes a while for these reference standards of follistatin and myostatin to come through. That has to be approved and ordered, obviously. So unfortunately, follistatin and myostatin I didn't test. It's basically impossible. And I don't think it was worth a couple $1,000s to test that for a supplement that people are going to take anyway. It's entirely up to your decision. My blood work parameters are not going to pivot you from taking it or not taking it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have this money stuffed in a sock under a couch somewhere, but I'd rather spend this money on Increlex, which I know will yield me much better results than knowing my serum follistatin or serum myostatin levels. So maybe we can interpret my before and after blood work results with the side effects associated with chronically elevated follistatin levels. It has an effect on the hypothalamic pituitary testicular axis, shown as a reduced follicle-stimulating hormone levels in serum, which might affect fertility downstream. This was first observed when follistatin levels were increased in various human studies and animal models. And this is actually why follistatin is named follistatin, because it's a statin for follicle-stimulating hormone. But it has potential benefits regarding muscle growth and the inhibition of myostatin. So the naming convention is a little bit off regarding the actual effects. Chronically elevated follistatin levels might cause insulin resistance and hyperglycemia, shown as elevated blood glucose levels, elevated fasting insulin levels, elevated triglyceride levels, and elevated hemoglobin A1C levels. And follistatin may impair insulin signaling in adipose tissue and promote lipolysis, which was shown in the scientific evidence, proving that epicatechin might actually improve fat metabolism, albeit in obese individuals. I was a little bit obese before we started this experiment, and I certainly got fat loss. Did that come from the caloric restriction or the follistatin increase caused by the epicatechin? I guess we'll never know. Chronically elevated follistatin levels might cause hepatic stress or dysfunction, shown as elevated liver enzymes ALT and AST, but those might also be elevated from vigorous exercise, as these aminotransferases are leaking from skeletal muscle, giving you a false positive on liver stress or dysfunction. Chronically elevated follistatin levels can cause thyroid dysfunction, shown by elevated free thyroxine levels. It can cause kidney stress, shown by elevated creatinine levels and albumin levels. It can cause systemic inflammation, shown by elevated high-sensitivity C-reactive protein levels, elevated interleukin-6 levels, and elevated cystatin C levels. Guess which one of these is significantly elevated? And chronically elevated follistatin levels might have a disease risk, including insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, chronic kidney disease, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Let's get into the blood work results. Make a mental note of these potential side effects of chronically elevated follistatin levels, and then see how my blood work parameters have changed over the last 4 weeks. But I'll do my due diligence explaining to you guys where these changes could potentially be coming from. So here's the blood work results from February 22nd, 2025, about a month ago, and March 23rd, 2025, it's a couple days ago. In my urinalysis, you see that it's pretty comparable, even though the pH of my urine the last couple of days was very, very low, so indicating high acidity. Could be coming from additional protein metabolism. Very common for acidity of the urine to be a little bit higher when you consume a lot of protein, and my protein intake is over 300 grams per day. So that might be a cause of it. And I was not as hydrated as the previous urinalysis results, because you could see in my specific gravity that on February 22nd, it was 1.005, and on March 23rd, it was 1.009, even though in both instances, I consumed at least 2 liters of water. And all of the other results are the same within normal parameters. So let's move over to the complete blood count. White blood cell count, a small change of 0.5%. Hemoglobin, a small change of 0.5%. Hematocrit, exactly the same. Red blood cell count, a change of 1%. Mean corpulus volume, mean corpulus hemoglobin concentration, all small changes of, let's say, 0.5% to 0.5% up. Red cell distribution with a small change of 4%. Platelet count, a small change of -3%. And regarding my white blood cell differential, a little bit more significant changes. Neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, eosinophils, and basophils changed to normal parameters. But I think I had a little bit of a sickness, a little bit of a sniffle, a little bit of a cough on February 22nd. So last time I was probably slightly sick or coming down with something. I can't remember, honestly. And then now, a couple days ago, I was perfectly healthy. And the other parameters are exactly the same within normal parameters. Regarding blood chemistry and kidney function, blood glucose increased by 6%. I don't think that's indication of insulin resistance or full-blown type 2 diabetes from chronically elevated follistatin levels. Blood urea nitrogen actually improved by about 10% from 27.9 to 24.8 milligrams per deciliter, even though my protein intake is exactly the same. So could be a hydration issue. Creatinine did increase from 1.34 to 1.42 milligrams per deciliter. So that's an increase of 6%. Is that from chronically elevated follistatin levels, from the epicatechin going up to 900 milligrams daily, or just because I gained more muscle mass and lost body fat, ending up the exact same weight? I think that's more likely because I also got stronger, obviously, as this experiment progressed. Cystatin C increased by about 6% from 0.7 to 0.74 milligrams per liter, which I say is a normal fluctuation. Usually I'm about 0.68 to 0.8 milligrams per liter, depending on how hydrated I am and how much my body weight is. So for 105 kilos, I would say that this is a normal result. Uric acid is the same. Creatine phosphokinase and lactose dehydrogenase increased by, let's say, 6 to 14%, give or take. Now, I'm not worried about that. Increased CPK and increased LDH is just common with increased training intensity. And since my creatinine went up and my liver enzymes also went up, I would say that it's all coming from training intensity, not from potential kidney problems or potential liver problems, like I highlighted in the potential side effects of chronically elevated follistatin levels. What is surprising and alarming, and I'm very concerned about, is an increase of 7,200% in my high-sensitivity C-reactive protein. On February 22nd, before I ever took Epicatechin, my high-sensitivity C-reactive protein was 0.3 milligrams per liter. And now, March 23rd, 30 days on Epicatechin, going up to 900 milligrams Epicatechin daily, 21.8 milligrams per liter. That's an increase of 7,200%. You would need to have cancer, or you would need to inject copious amounts of injectable anadrol suspended in glycol or injectable dianabol suspended in glycol to get your high-sensitivity C-reactive protein up this high. You know what's funny? I don't feel like I have elevated C-reactive protein. I don't feel inflamed. My joints don't hurt, right? I didn't get any problems with my joints over the last couple of weeks that I've been using Epicatechin. So this could either be a one-off or a real result. I did take the Epicatechin out. I will check my high sensitivity C-reactive protein levels this Sunday, so that's a week after discontinuing Epicatechin, as I will check my homocysteine levels because I didn't test that this time. And I will check my ferritin levels, which are all markers of inflammation. Unfortunately, I can't check for the other inflammatory markers like interleukin-6. So this is the best I can do for now. I will test it a week after discontinuing the Epicatechin to see if high sensitivity C-reactive protein came down to approximately half, because the half-life of C-reactive protein is approximately 5 days, give or take. It usually takes a week for that to come down significantly. If it's exactly the same, it's something else that I'm taking or doing, or environmental pollution, which I don't think, I mean, the ppm in Bangkok is kind of high, but it's not that high that my C-reactive protein would be 21.8 milligrams per liter. That's fucking high, dude. So it could either come from the Epicatechin or the bioperine, even though both have been associated with antioxidant effects and anti-inflammatory effects. So it shouldn't cause such an increase of C-reactive protein. It could be some of the binder that this indie company uses in their minus Epicatechin extract formulation, causing my C-reactive protein to get that high. Again, I have digestive issues, so maybe it's something in there that is causing my C-reactive protein to get that high. Maybe it's bound with gluten. It could be the case. Who knows? They don't disclose that on the product packaging from what I remember reading. So that could be the case. Or my follistatin levels are so high that the only real observable effect of my blood work is fucking high CRP levels. So again, time will tell. I'll do blood work this Sunday and then mix in the results right after we finish the blood work results as an add-on segment. Okay, with that out of the way, let's move over to serum lipids. Total cholesterol, exactly the same, 119 milligrams per deciliter. Triglycerides went up with 50%, but still within normal parameters, from 30 to 47 milligrams per deciliter. It's that from chronically elevated follistatin levels, or simply because I forgot to inject my injectable carnitine. It's probably the latter. HDL went down with 8% from 49 to 45 milligrams per deciliter. I think that's a normal change from being on TRT for 3 for longer periods of time. LDL went up with 6% from 61 to 65 milligrams per deciliter. I think that's also a normal change from being on TRT, well, 625 milligrams testosterone enanthate longer. It's testosterone replacement therapy for 3 people, in case you didn't get the joke yet. Some people don't. It's unfortunate, but hey, not everybody has the same level of intelligence and joke interpreting capacity as I do. So LDL increased, HDL decreased. I don't think that's from chronically elevated follistatin levels. I think it's just being on testosterone enanthate for a longer period of time at this particular dose. And I didn't check the other serum lipids because, well, on testosterone, I don't feel the need to check lipoprotein A, apolipoprotein A1, or apolipoprotein B at all. Liver panel, I would say that these are normal changes, not abnormal numbers. So total protein, albumin, globulin, albumin to globulin ratio, total bilirubin and direct bilirubin all fall within normal parameters of other blood work results when I'm on testosterone only, even though total bilirubin and direct bilirubin dropped down quite a bit. It could also be because back in the day, right, when I did the February 22nd blood work results, I was off for a while, and then maybe I got increased red blood cell destruction and hemoglobin release being metabolized into bilirubin, and thus it went up slightly from baseline because 0.35 on my total bilirubin, that's 0.35 milligrams per deciliter. That's more comparable to other blood work results than 0.56 milligrams per deciliter is. You do see a steep increase in liver enzymes. It went up with, 55 to 70%. AST went from 59 to 99 units per liter, and ALT went from 36 to 56 units per liter. And even though I took less compounds, my liver enzymes went up. Is that by reducing the TUDCA? Potentially. Is that from chronically elevated follistatin levels? Potentially. Is that from the Epicatechin itself causing hepatic stress, or the bioperine or the binders or whatever in the product? Is that the capsules that I took multiple times per day causing liver stress, elevating my liver enzymes, or training much harder? It's probably a combination of all of that. This is why I'm taking a week off this week and not eating any food to see if my liver enzymes are still this elevated or they drop by half. Yes, the things I need to do to my body to get accurate readings and interpretations, you guys have no idea. Alkaline phosphatase, pretty much the same. I didn't recheck my bond-specific alkaline phosphatase because the last time was 11.6 micrograms per liter, which falls within normal parameters. So the surgery did not make a change to my alkaline phosphatase or bone-specific alkaline phosphatase levels. Gamma GT, a serum normal, right? I'm on top of my caffeine and glutathione intake. Even though this time I didn't inject my glutathione, I still take N-acetylcysteine to increase my glutathione levels in the body for improved antioxidant status. You see here on my iron levels that ferritin dropped down by about 16% from 230 to 194 nanograms per milliliter. Ferritin is also an indication of liver stress, so if this is not elevated, then I don't think that there's so much inflammation occurring in my liver. But serum iron dropped down by a whopping 46% and is now below the reference range from 93 to 50 micrograms per deciliter. And that just indicates chronic inflammation. So I think the inflammation has been there for, well, a month, because last time there was no indication of inflammation, right? Serum iron was normal, and my high sensitivity C-reactive protein levels were normal. But then over the course of the month, during this time that I'm experimenting with various dosages of epicatechin, serum iron dropped almost 50%. Yeah, and that's now below the reference range. I might go anemic. I might need some fucking Anadrol to get me out. No. Just need to keep eating beef and remove the epicatechin and resolve this systemic inflammation. Let's see what the blood work results said a week later after removing the epicatechin. And then we'll retest serum iron as well, just to make sure that that's coming back up. Because, well, this week I don't eat any beef, obviously, but next week I'll start eating beef again. And beef contains a good amount of hema iron, which is highly bioavailable. And then I should be slowly but steadily be able to restore my iron stores and not go fully anemic, requiring me to take a bottle of Anadrol, which is not part of this Operation Follistatin experiment, mind you. Regarding my thyroid panel, you see that total T3, free T3, and free T4 all went down with about 1 to 6%. But if you remember from the side effects of the chronically elevated follistatin levels, free T4 should actually go up. Total T4 did go up by 8%, and thyroid stimulating hormone went up by 41% from 2.5 to 3.5 micro IUs per milliliter. So I have to keep my eye on that. But again, it could be a normal fluctuation. I'm not taking growth hormone. I'm not taking exogenous T4, which would otherwise keep my thyroid stimulating hormone suppressed and giving me adequate T3 and T4 levels in the bloodstream. So now I'm solely relying on normal endogenous thyroid function without supplementing stuff like that in. So let's see how that progresses. If I go, my thyroid stimulating hormone goes up to 8 milli-IUs per milliliter, then obviously I'm going to supplement the T4 back in and keep my T3 levels sustained and my TSH levels at the bottom of the reference range, minimizing the burden on my thyroid. Sex hormones. Tell me in the comment section if you use the timestamps to skip ahead. I know you guys like to skip ahead to the sex hormones. Fucking perverts. Cortisol went up 18% from 10.2 to 12 micrograms per deciliter. I would say that that's a normal fluctuation. Estradiol went up even more by 55% from 140 to 120 picograms per milliliter. I mean, this is all your fault, right? I hope you feel responsible for me having a serum estradiol levels of 220 picograms per milliliter. I mean, I have ED, libido issues, emotional disturbances. I'm crying during movies all the time. I feel unmotivated. It's terrible, right? A full-blown PMSing 24. Actually, I have none of that. I feel totally fine. I have no issues with having my estradiol this high. I got my gyno removed. It's not growing back. My PP is rock hard whenever I need it. But even though I'm dieting, the frequency between rock hard PPs are not as frequent because, well, I'm dieting and that means less incentive to put those calories to work, unfortunately. So let's see what happens during the YK11 experiment over the next couple of weeks. If that's able to drop my serum estradiol from 220 picograms per milliliter to half or closer to the reference range. And this shows that epicatechin has no suppressive effect on serum estradiol, unlike what's being claimed on Reddit. But on Reddit, nobody ever does blood work. So I did it for you again. Progesterone, a slight reduction of 11%. Prolactin, a slight increase of 64%, but within the middle of the reference range. So no libido diminishing returns there. Total testosterone, free testosterone, bioavailable testosterone, I didn't measure because it all goes out of the reference range. So it's pointless to test that on 625 milligrams testosterone intake weekly. It will be over 3,400 nanograms per deciliter. And why would I spend another couple thousand baht or a couple tens of dollars to get a result that's exactly the same, because it's unmeasurable beyond the detectable range. And unfortunately, we don't have liquid chromatography tandem mass spectrometry testing here in Thailand. So I have to go with, basic non-sensitive testing, which goes up to 3,400 something nanograms per deciliter. And in both instances, it would definitely be over that. SHBG increased slightly because my estradiol increased, or maybe because of the small changes to my thyroid hormones from 41.1 to 46.8 nanomoles per liter, increase of about 14%. DHS sulfate increased by 7%. Growth hormone decreased by 16% from 3.5 to 3 nanograms per milliliter, because I'm not allowed to use growth hormone, for fuck's sake. IGF-1 decreased from 135 to 128 nanograms per milliliter, a decrease of 5.2%. IGF binding protein 3 decreased by 2.3%, but if you round it, it's about 3,000 nanograms per milliliter. Insulin decreased by 20% from 2.5 to 2 microUs per milliliter, and hemoglobin A1C decreased from 5.1 to 4.9%, which is a decrease of 4%. So from all of the chronically elevated follistatin levels, side effects, liver enzymes increasing, potential changes to kidney function, even though I think that's coming from an increase in muscle mass, right? Same body weight, but more muscle mass, as you can saw from the before and after pictures, and I'm certainly a lot stronger. And, well, this inflammatory reading off the scale. Now, I did some digging to see if epicatechin is known to increase high-sensitivity C-reactive protein levels, whether that's scientifically or anecdotally. I could only find one case report where 100 milligrams epicatechin daily from cacao powder increased C-reactive protein levels from 8.6 milligrams per deciliter to 12.7 milligrams per deciliter. So it was already elevated, and it elevated by, 50%, give or take. And this is in a 56-year-old male patient with desminopathy, which is a rare genetic disorder that affects desmin proteins, which is essential for the structure and the function of muscle. Desminopathy is characterized by muscle inflammation and progressive muscle deterioration, which could potentially lead to increased inflammatory markers, albeit that there's no clear correlation between desminopathy and elevated CRP levels. Maybe this particular combination of desminopathy and taking epicatechin increases CRP levels by 50%. Still not as high as a CRP increase of 7,200% that I got. Up until now, I have no explanation for it. Hopefully, a follow-up blood work will give me a little bit more insight on what's going on, or if I need to look somewhere else in my entire drug stack, and it has nothing to do with the epicatechin at all. All right, I'm back with some updated blood work results, and it's not looking good. Actually, my blood work results look a lot better. It's just not looking good for ND's minus epicatechin product. After I got the results back last week at a high-sensitivity C-reactive protein of 21.8 milligrams per liter, I felt a little bit uncomfortable the next day, so I decided to do a deload, a full week off from the gym, and fast for 5.5 days, because when you get results like this and speculating about cardiovascular disease, wondering how long high-sensitivity C-reactive protein levels were that elevated, right, 7,300% over the previous baseline results, I decided, you know what, no training, no food, let's get this under control, take the minus epicatechin product out. So from 900 milligrams daily to 0 milligrams daily. And then a week later, I retested my bloods to see if C-reactive protein and the other metabolic markers came down tremendously or somewhat. So let's get into the results right here. I didn't do a full blood work analysis, obviously, only the markers which I felt were going to be significantly impacted from taking the minus epicatechin out and then also stopping training and stopping food for 5.5 days, albeit that I had one day where I reintroduced the meals which I just discussed, consisting of several meals with chicken, beef, and beef liver, and a couple meals containing fish, predominantly salmon. Here you see that my blood chemistry and kidney function, creatinine went from 1.34 to 1.42, back down to 1.39 milligrams per deciliter. So comparing the results from March 23rd to March 30th, a couple days ago, there's a reduction of about 3%, which I attribute to a reduction in food intake and a complete cessation of going to the gym. Creatine phosphokinase and lactose dehydrogenase decreased by approximately 21 to 28%. CPK went from 1,700 to 1,850 to 1,300 units per liter. And LDH went from 220 to 250 to 200 units per liter. So based on the results of March 23rd to March 30th, that's a reduction of about, let's say, 21 to 28.5%. And happily, luckily, thank God, high-sensitivity C-reactive protein came down with 87.2% from 21.8 milligrams per liter to 2.8 milligrams per liter, which I'm very, very happy about. Again, based on the last results, I could not notice that I was in a severe inflammatory state, but when you see your blood work results, then you feel chronically inflamed suddenly. So that's the reason why I decided not to go to the gym and take the food out, just to get that inflammation under control as fast as possible, and obviously take the minus epicatechin out as well. So this is a significant reduction, right? An increase of 7,300% from 0.3 to 21.8 milligrams per liter, and then a reduction of 87.2% from 21.8 to 2.8 milligrams per liter, still being more elevated than the baseline readings I took on February 22nd. So I'm happy to see this come down. Now, what I could do, and I honestly don't want to do it, but I have a couple tablets of this ND minus epicatogen left. I could do a couple days on 360 milligrams minus epicatogen, leading up to another blood work result, which I can do this weekend or Monday, the latest. So let's say 2 or 3 days on 360 milligrams minus epicatogen daily, a split 180 milligrams morning and evening, the more sustainable and perhaps tolerable dose regarding blood work parameters, and then see if my C-reactive protein comes up again, or that's purely attributed to this 900 milligram dose that I was running for the last 10 days before I did blood work on March 23rd. Let me know down below in the comment section. I'd rather not do it than subject myself to more potential inflammation, but if you guys really want to see it, and this is a result that's completely unheard of and none of you guys experienced this running minus epicatogen products yourself, then well, I'm willing to undergo the self-experimentation, but if my C-reactive protein increases from 2.8 milligrams per liter to anything over that, it's not lower than that. If it's 5 or 10 or 12 milligrams per liter, then it's pretty damning, and I would never touch that product ever again. Let's see, in my liver panel, I just rechecked my liver enzymes. AST went from 59 to 99 to 67, so there's a reduction of, let's say, 32% compared to March 23rd to March 30th. And ALT went from 36 to 56, back down to 46, again, a reduction of about 18% between March 23rd and 30th. And I would attribute that reduction of, let's say, 18 to 32% simply by not going to the gym for a week. You see that CPK went down 30%, LDH went down 20%, AST down 30%, and ALT went down 20%. So that's all pretty similar. And CPK, LDH, AST and ALT can all increase from training vigorously, which is something I was certainly doing on minus epicatogen combined with 625 milligrams testosterone enanthate. My ferritin saw a slight reduction with 3%, and serum iron a slight reduction of 4%. Serum iron is still below the reference range. Now, it's very difficult to restore serum iron levels when you only ate 1 day, consisting of beef and beef liver, and chicken and salmon have a little bit of iron content, but it's mostly coming from the beef and beef liver. So I will keep my eye on my serum iron levels. If I feel that I'm going anemic, I will start supplementing with an iron ferrocell ferrous bisglycinate chelate formula, which I honestly don't think that I'm going to be needing, because if I continue with my beef and beef liver intake over the next couple of weeks and I remove this inflammatory compound, the minus epicatogen, keeping my C-reactive protein levels nice and low like they were previously before starting this experiment, then I think that my iron stores will slowly start to come up. Again, I'm consuming a lot of vitamin C as well, which helps with iron absorption, and I get plenty of copper in my diet, which helps with iron absorption as well. So I don't think that I need to supplement with it, but if I see over the next couple of weeks that my serum iron doesn't come up, then obviously I will go with an iron ferrocell ferrous bisglycinate chelate and update you guys as this Operation Follistatin experiment is continuing. And switching from epicatogen to YK11 at 30 milligrams daily taken orally, I'm switching to sublingual administrations next week. Estradiol saw a slight reduction by 3.5% from 220 to 210 picograms per milliliter. Previously, it was 140 picograms per milliliter, so we went from 140 to 220 to 210, which is a slight reduction of 3.5% between March 23rd and March 30th. So now, after making that switch from 900 milligrams epicatogen to 30 milligrams YK11 daily, split 15 milligrams morning and evening, after 10 days, I can already conclude that the YK11 is a lot more potent regarding strength and overall size and muscularity, even though it's been only 10 days. I see a noticeable difference and a noticeable response comparing 900 milligrams epicatogen to, again, 30 milligrams YK11. Now, epicatogen has some mitochondrial benefits and anti-inflammatory benefits. Didn't happen to me, but allegedly, based on the scientific evidence, has a lot of beneficial effects, right? Mostly mitochondrial function being upregulated, and then this significant increase in follistatin levels. And YK11 also has an increase in follistatin levels, but it is an androgenic compound, right? It's an anabolic androgenic steroid that was classified as a SARM, which is also known to increase follistatin levels quite dramatically, albeit that this is all stemming from animal models, not from human subjects like you see with epicatogen. The YK11 animal models use quite high dosages, if you extrapolate that to the human equivalent dose, so the response regarding follistatin might not be identical compared to epicatechin. And again, I've never seen a study comparing the follistatin secreting effect of minus epicatechin to the follistatin secreting effects of YK11, whether that was an animal model or in human subjects. So I'm doing the experiment as a industry first. Now, if both of these compounds increase follistatin levels, but I get a more pronounced effect from YK11, is that a difference in follistatin levels or the fact that YK11 is an anabolic androgenic steroid that potentiates anabolism through the androgen receptors as well? So you get two effects versus one, right? Even though epicatechin has some mitochondrial benefits, but I was on the full mitochondrial support stack before I started epicatechin, and I was still running methylene blue, so I felt I did not get much of a benefit removing all of the mitochondrial support aids and sticking with methylene blue and epicatechin in combination. I feel that adding in YK11 is a lot more potent in as little as 10 days. And I'm happy, or I'm looking forward to see what the future, the next couple of days, is going to bring regarding the change from taking YK11 orally to sublingually, switching to injectable, whether that's intramuscularly or subcutaneously. I haven't really decided yet. So reduction, switching from epicatechin to YK11, a reduction of 3.5% on my serum estradiol levels from 220 to 210 picograms per milliliter. It could be a normal fluctuation or an indication, an early indication that YK11 has some potential aromatase inhibiting effects, and with longer use, serum estradiol will come down quite significantly. Again, fingers crossed, there's no scientific evidence to support this, pure anecdotal evidence, that serum estradiol will end up around 100 picograms per milliliter, approximately half of where it was switching from epicatechin to YK11 at the exact same dose of testosterone. Now, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Let's stick to epicatechin. So I'll wrap it up here and continue with the rest of the video discussing the epicatechin dosing protocols. And it brings us to the minus epicatechin dosing protocol, which is pretty similar for men and women. But for women, I would still keep the dose a little bit lower because generally speaking, women have a lower body weight than men. Men, the sustainable and tolerable dose is anywhere between 50 milligrams to 200 milligrams orally twice daily. It seems that with the scientific evidence, twice daily administration resulted in higher follistatin levels compared to once daily administration of the same total daily intake dose. So let's say that's total 100 milligrams or 400 milligrams daily, and then you might be able to ramp it up higher, but then based on my blood work results, and again, still don't have a concrete explanation on why my CRP levels ended up this high, so a little bit of caution is advised. The deleterious dose might be between 100 milligrams to 200 milligrams orally 5 times daily, which is what I did. Let's say a total of 500 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams over the day. Now, personally, I took 180 milligrams epicatechin 5 times daily for a total intake of 900 milligrams over the day. It's not something I can recommend, partially based on my blood work results having such an elevated high sensitivity C-reactive protein levels to absolutely phenomenal, crazy levels. Right, I wish I never saw that blood work result, but hey, that's what happened. But I didn't notice much of a benefit switching from 360 milligrams over 2 servings, morning and evening, to 900 milligrams. I think the results were pretty much the same. And since most of the results are probably coming from mitochondrial biogenesis, which I was still running methylene blue, and I got a lot of mitochondrial beneficial upregulation from the mitochondrial support stack that I was running before I switched to this Operation Follistatin-based protocol, just containing methylene blue, but not SLU, PP32, and MOD-C. I think mitochondrial function did not change much on this epicatechin protocol, but if there's only so much follistatin you can increase, then 360 milligrams based on the scientific evidence should be more than enough to get this follistatin boosting effect, and then escalating the dose up to 900 milligrams probably not required. I wish I had blood work on 360 milligrams, maybe in the future if you guys demand it, but for now I'm going to leave it for what it is. Maybe my CRP was like, I don't know, 10 milligrams per liter on 360 milligrams epicatechin over the day, and that's also way too high, right? So moral of the story here is, do your blood work while running epicatechin, and if you don't get a similar response, then all the more power to you. You can run it for longer periods of time, but as soon as you notice that C-reactive protein goes up and you don't get this anti-inflammatory effect, which was observed in clinical medical settings from scientific evidence, then epicatechin is not for you, just like it is not for me. Unfortunately, I'll stick to YK11. YK11 did not change my C-reactive protein levels, didn't increase it to this much of a crazy amount. So comparing Epicatechin to YK11, based on my previous results, I'm going to stick with YK11, which is exactly what I'm running now. And anecdotally, users of Epicatechin generally run between 100 milligrams to 300 milligrams daily. There are some reports of people going up to 500 milligrams Epicatechin daily, whether that's in combination with other anabolic androgenic steroids or natty, or in combination with half-natty approved compounds that don't downregulate the HPTA. Anecdotally, people report that Epicatechin supplementation increases muscle mass and vascularity, stemming from its follistatin increasing effects. Epicatechin improves cognitive function. Allegedly, it's not something I noticed, including enhanced motivation, memory, and mood, possibly due to an increase in endorphin levels and MAOI inhibiting effects. Although the scientific evidence is very thin on this subject, that's why I didn't include it. So regarding endorphins and MAOI inhibiting effects, Epicatechin is noted to improve blood flow and provide mild energizing effects, which probably comes from its mitochondrial function and mitochondrial biogenesis benefits. And on the other end, Epicatechin, like YK11, is associated with joint pain or joint discomfort, which people speculate is coming from an estrogen lowering effect, which isn't supported by the scientific evidence, and neither is it supported by my blood work results, because my estradiol increased by 55% from 140 to 220 picograms per milliliter, which is higher than before, obviously. And that being said, its close counterpart of Epicatechin, which is also found in green tea, epigallocatechin gallate, EGCG, has been shown to inhibit aromatase enzyme activity and can actually lower serum estradiol levels to a certain extent. And some people reported mood disturbances running Epicatechin at various dosages, but I experienced none of that. I'm usually a happy-go-lucky guy, unless I'm running the Trenbolone sandwich, but I'm also on methylene blue and fluvoxamine, obviously, which keeps my mood regulated at an all-time high continuously, which is absolutely fantastic. All right. I'll leave it here. If you're interested in running Epicatechin, or you have experience running Epicatechin, let us know your anecdotal experience down below in the YouTube comment section. I would love to hear about it. I don't think I'm going to use Epicatechin ever again. I'm still not convinced that Epicatechin caused my C-reactive protein to be that elevated, but at the first sign of trouble, I abort, and that's exactly what I did. And thus, Epicatechin for me is off the menu. But if you would like to run it in the future, or you have experience with Epicatechin and before and after blood work results showing that C-reactive protein went absolutely sky fucking high and then came down again after you discontinued Epicatechin, let us know down below. I would love to hear about it. Everybody would love to hear about it, so we can make a more informed decision whether we want to use this compound or not. Do your blood work over at Merrick Health if you undergo a lot of self-experimentation. If you live in the United States, where you use Epicatechin before and after, or other compounds which might affect your follistatin levels, YK11 for example, or injectable follistatin variants. Blood work is very important, as you could see from my blood work results. Imagine if I ran Epicatechin for months on end, and then my C-reactive protein levels was chronically elevated to the point I got cardiovascular disease from an over-the-counter supplement. That would have been insane, right? But I do my blood work every month to stay on top of my health, so I can abort whenever appropriate. Okay, Merrick Health is the place to go for blood work if you live in the United States. Corellamide has the best pre-workouts and overall fitness supplements. Intelligent Shop has the best fragrances and hair loss prevention compounds. And iHerb has a good amount of health supplements as well. You can find all of the discount codes for these companies down below. And if you're looking for something particular, head over to my website, VigorousSteve.com. I have a lot more sponsors and affiliates there. So if you're looking for something particular that I don't mention in these YouTube videos, it's probably available through the website. Bookmark that site. You won't be disappointed. Vigorous crew, you guys know what to do. A post-Epicatechin frontable bicep for you guys. There's a boatload of YK11 in these cannons right now, taking that orally. Then we're switching to sublingual YK11 and then injectable YK11. And imagine how big these cannons are going to look once the YK11 starts to hit and the follistatin starts to increase, and hopefully the C-reactive protein will come down. All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next deep dive.